Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township public meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. Due to the COVID-19 virus and Governor Wolf's orders limiting indoor gatherings, in-person attendance for this meeting is being limited to a maximum of 25 people who will be observing social distancing. Additionally, based upon the order of the Secretary of Health regarding face coverings, all participants in the public meeting room are required to wear a face covering unless they fit into one of the order's exceptions. When speaking, while maintaining social distance, participants may remove their face covering. Therefore, this meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. The Township is expecting to utilize this vehicle for all future public meetings during and after the COVID-19 crisis. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website and will be posted on the front of the Township building. The Township will also be recording the meeting and making it available for viewing via the Township website and YouTube channel. While every effort will be made to ensure the live streaming and website are working, East Lampeter Township takes no responsibility for and cannot be held liable for the unavailability of live streaming in part or in full due to technical issues beyond its control. Live streams and recordings of all meetings remain the property of East Lampeter Township and are protected by copyright. Access to live streams and recordings of meetings is provided for personal and non-commercial use. Video, images, and audio must not be altered, reproduced, or republished without permission of East Lampeter Township. It is suggested that all participants on Zoom mute their microphone during the meeting until they wish to speak, make a motion, or vote. All votes will be taken by roll call so that they can be properly recorded. In order to accommodate public comments at this meeting, the Township will be accepting public comments in writing or via email. Instructions for the submission of public comments are available on the Township website. All those providing public comments will be required to provide their name and address in order for their comments to be read into the record. Inappropriate comments will not be read into the record. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, all right, well, so that was much more satisfactory than having me do it. Oh, do we have somebody?
Charlie.
Is there somebody?
Yeah, sure.
Charlie's been under the weather for a couple days, so he's joining remotely.
Oh, okay. Charlie, okay. All right, okay. So, the first order of business is the board reorganization. Do we have any candidates to, for any of our officers? Anybody want to be, replace me as chairman of the board? Any?
Hey, why fix what's not broken?
That's my vote as well.
My vote too.
All right,
If you agree.
okay.
You seem to be humming pretty good.
Okay, all right, well, then, so,
I make a motion, we keep the officers the same for 2021 as they were for 2020.
Yeah, I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Well, that was quick, quickly, okay, good. The minutes, has everyone read the minutes of the October meeting?
Yeah, yes.
Here's a copy of it here. if you want.
Okay.
Okay,
Well, we'll just, I'm sure.
okay, has anyone, any changes, corrections, anything like that? Comments? Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
And I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Public concerns or comments? Not from a member of the public up there. Okay. I'm not hearing any. Reports, recreation.
Okay, in recreation, we had the CBVA, they've contacted us and requested use of Flory Field and our field again for this year. I said to bring up the meeting and we'd vote on if it's okay for them to use them again this year with the same stipulations it has last year. I imagine there's still COVID restrictions in place, Ralph, for that, and have their insurance and their schedule posted to us as soon as possible, you know, so we know what's going on. And do they still have this list of restrictions? If not, they can contact you or Charlie to get that list.
Sure. If they need help with anything.
Okay.
Charlie, have you heard from anybody?
I haven't heard from anybody yet for any schedules. The only thing we did do is talk to them. I think last year they requested about taking the grass out of the infield at Flory Park, and which was approved last year at one of the meetings. But I think that's the only conversation we've had so far.
Are you going to contact them, Charlie, and saying this is okay to use it, or should I contact them, or?
If you want to still handle that, just verify that they still have the liability insurance coming in.
Okay.
That'd be great. Yeah, just keep me in the loop, please.
Okay, yeah, no problem, yeah. I'll send the email tonight or tomorrow morning. Got it.
You guys can hear me okay in there?
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so we'll take care of that.
Okay. Anything else?
Now, as far as I know, that's all I've heard so far of anybody.
Right, grounds, buildings and trails.
The guys have had some good weather up there to be removing some of the trees for the scorched leaf bacteria. Been cleaning that up. Other than that, just keeping things tidied up. The park's still already open. I apologize for not being in the office last couple of days. I was going to try to give you a report on how many reservations we've had at this point, but I don't have that information now.
And I'm trying to remember how that worked. We had, what, the first 2 weeks or the first month? The first 2 weeks was township residents and then everybody else after that.
That's correct. Yeah, we only had one person calling non-resident and tried to tell the girls they've rented prior years,
Okay.
and the girls held them off, and the lady called back within 2 weeks anyway. So, yeah, it's the first 2 weeks of the year, residents only.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Charlie?
Not at this time.
Okay. All right. Old business. Anybody have any old business? Okay, hearing none. New business. The acquisition of the Notes Mill from Mr. Hutchinson.
I think at your October meeting, you were aware that the board had entered into an agreement to purchase. We went through our due diligence process, and ultimately the board decided to go forward with that. So we settled on the property just before Christmas, and the township is now the owner. We also, at the same time, leased the property back to the former owner. So he's still occupying the property just the same as he did before we purchased it. So that'll continue to be the case for up to 3 years. In the meantime, we still have access to the property, and we can do whatever planning or, surveying, activity that we want to pursue there. So it's not going to be in the way of doing anything. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that the park board was up to date on what had happened and where we are.
Okay. I guess one of the things that would occur to me is, I guess, and with the next point, potentially use of that building long-term, you know, what might we want to, what kind of a process do we want to go through to, you know, make any recommendations or think about?
Well, I think
anything?
that would go with our whole plan. You know, that would be part of the
That's what I was saying, yeah.
whatever, you know, we looked at as part of our planning process, I would think.
I know, at least initially, from township staff's perspective anyway, the first things that we're going to be pursuing are going to be not related to the building, but related to the stormwater issues on Mill Creek, so related to the dam, related to the mill race, and what we can do to continue to try and address the obligations that we have under our MS4 permit. So those are the first things we're going to be looking at, but that doesn't preclude from, you know, looking at other things farther out in the future as well.
Any thoughts specifically of what that might be?
Not as far as stormwater improvements, well, you know, similar to the stream bank improvements that we did down below the dam, we're going to look at above the dam. So it could mean, you know, also looking at the dam itself and whether or not,
That'd be great.
you know, that would be breached or removed, or, you know, would certainly change Mill Creek above the dam if that would change.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And then what happens to the mill race and how does that affect the mill building if the water's not going through there anymore? So there would be a lot to consider there, but even just looking at, you know, removing some or as much as possible the silt that's built up behind the dam to address the pollution issues that we have to address. So that could be the first thing to be looked at, would be, you know, how much silt is there behind the dam and how could that help us?
Are there grants specific for dam removal as opposed to, I mean, so there's potentially other accesses for resources other than what we've been doing for the last couple of years?
Right. In addition to the stormwater specific type grants, the Fish and Boat Commission has dam related grant sources that would be available, at least to try to tap into. They've, you know, we'd almost have to look at, you know, there are 3 dams along Mill Creek that are in East Lampeter. The one at Flory Park, there's one at Dutch Wonderland, which isn't
Yeah, it's just a little.
quite the same,
Yeah.
and then the Knolls Mill Dam. So we'd almost have to look at all 3 of those to address what the Fish and Boat Commission wants to do, is to, you know, have the ability of the fish to come all the way up Mill Creek without being impeded by the dam. So, so that's a possibility.
And the only question I have is, and, you know, I think this is kind of, you basically set the stage for it. Do we need, I mean, does that need some kind of engineering assessment at some point for trying to figure out just what needs to happen and what can happen, what should happen, and what would be the best thing? So, I mean, I guess that's,
It
You-
will.
and I'm almost thinking the same thing with the building, you know, that it'd be nice to have, you know, like, consultants come in and, you know, even make some suggestions, you know, but, as Diane said, I'm with you, you know, we might want to wait until we're a little further along with the regional planning process. So, but that's something that we might, I just want to make sure that we make the best use of the asset, that's all. That's what I'm really thinking of more than anything. Okay. All right, good. Anything else on that? Okay. The CVE Regional Recreation Plan.
So I think we were talking about the peer grant process back in October, and we're still in the middle of that. We had asked the school district and Upper Lake Cock Township to adopt resolutions that they would participate in the peer grant process so that we can make application. The school district did adopt a resolution, and we just recently got that. We're still waiting for Upper Laycock to act. As soon as they do that, then our East Lampeter board can act and we can submit the application. There's no set deadline or grant period for this application, so we can submit at any time. And I've talked with the people up at DCNR, and they feel confident that, you know, it'll be favorably reviewed once it does get up there. And then they'll assign a recreation professional who's out there working somewhere right now to come help the region develop in accordance with our plan. So I'm hoping that we'll get Upper Laycock's resolution in February, hopefully, and then in March we can submit the application and get things rolling.
So Westerville decided not to participate?
We've kept them in the loop, but they've declined.
What was the reason? Did they say what the reason was?
Not really. I think, as we've talked about before here, you know, we're going to continue to approach them as we go along through the process and hope that they might change their mind. I guess the reason that we heard back from them was that they had other priorities that they wanted to work on.
Okay, so you're saying that I just understand right and wrong, that the state will assign somebody to come in here and run this for us? Is that going to be the traveling person, whatever they call them, or?
No, they're not going to run anything for us. They would be a consultant
They just help to organize?
to help the group figure out what the group wants to do.
Okay.
They're facilitators.
And the group being all of us, you know, the school district and the 2 townships right now?
Correct.
The two townships.
Okay. Just the 2 townships at this point? Okay. And the funding for that, the schools kick in on funding on that too then, or that
Yeah,
they're just?
it's very minimal. The state will contribute through the grant program $10,000,
Okay,
and then the local area has to match it with $1,000. So
okay.
between the 3 of us, it's $333 each.
That's
Yeah.
just that to get the grant?
Correct.
Okay. And then once you get the grant, that pays for the first year or so for the person, whenever you get a person. Is there an interview process? We're going to be involved with that and
No.
finding a person?
DCNRs.
But I
No,
mean, once you hire somebody to be the,
No, it's not us to hire it. The DCNR people give us a person for a year to help facilitate the process.
Okay. but if that person's not necessarily, he's going to be a facilitator, not the person in charge telling us what to do. He's going to suggest and help us. He doesn't make the rules and tell us you're doing this and you're doing that.
right. He or she will be a recreation professional who's working somewhere right now in that capacity for somebody else. And they're going to do on a consulting basis. They're not going to be assigned to us forever or anything. They're going to just be assigned by DCNR. DCNR will pay them a consulting fee.
Okay,
And they'll come, we'll have a committee of people that'll be made up of representatives from school district, Upper Laycock and East Lampeter. And they'll, you know, using their experience as a recreation professional and
Right.
how they've seen things work, help the group organize some sort of regional entity.
okay. So they're not coming in just saying this is the way it's going to be. We still have to say in that. They're going to try and guide us and give us guidelines of how to set up and run.
Right. They're an expert that we would use their expertise to help
Yeah.
us figure out what we want to do.
Yeah, because, you know, they're an expert. They have the degree and all this and stuff too, but they don't know our township like we know our township. But
Well, it could be somebody from Ephrata.
It could be.
You know, it could be somebody from
Pittsburgh.
Ephrata that, or Hempfield, somebody
Yeah.
that's that already lives in
But it could
Lancaster, knows.
Could be, it
You
could
know,
not be,
Lancaster,
yeah.
you know, could be somebody that's very familiar
It
with
could be, it
us.
could be somebody that doesn't knows anybody, you know, I'm concerned, you know, if we get somebody that's gonna come in, we keep our township, this is a conservative community, we don't want somebody very liberal coming in.
Chris, I don't think you really understand what this person's doing.
Yeah, well, I just wanna make-
They're basically letting us tell them.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
then
asking, are we gonna tell them what we wanna do, and we have to
Well,
have
we all gotta
people,
figure that out. That's what
Yeah.
the whole purpose of this is.
and that's what I'm saying, to make sure that
Figure out
person doesn't come in and say, this is how you're doing it. And we have to make sure we have both conservative and liberal people on putting input into this too, that it's not just all one-sided view. But there are some very good things in that plan. There's some things I don't particularly care for, things that we have input on what's going to happen. I just don't want to, through that one or two people that are, they're on this side, more liberal than what some of the other people would be. We get very few comments here, but the other month, one person did come in and said, are you considering and taking into consideration the conservative and more plain people in our community when we're making these plans and doing things? And I want to make sure that is considered also. I think that lady that said at that time, that might have been your wife or something, I think, wasn't it? That we're considering the plain sight community too, because it's a large percentage of our population. And I just want to make sure that that's being taken care of too, that we're not going off and running things.
This is to work to figure out how we're going to organize to decide what happened. I mean, it's a long, drawn out
It is,
process.
but I just want to make sure that we, at the very beginning, we start that I understand what's going on and everyone, that what we're just doing. We're just not running headfirst into it and we're doing things step at a time. Okay. That was my question, because I don't really understand. I don't understand. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand.
Till we even get to the plan, we're talking another year at least, year and a half.
Yeah.
Actually, because
No,
we
it's
figure you
clarify.
submit in March, we're thinking maybe by June, we might have somebody assigned.
Yeah, I would say, that would be my expectation.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Yeah. I want to make sure I'm clear what's going on and stuff too.
Yeah, and
Except the park board's not going to be
summer.
abolished at this point or nothing like that, because they're not going to go in and have something like this. Because at one time you were saying, I don't know, something I got at that point in one meeting or something one time, that maybe once all this is done, the park boards won't exist anymore, that there'll be an entity that kind of works together with all the parks and they work together. And I don't know if, the way township set up, I don't know if they actually have a park board anymore. They have a person out there in charge of everything, and then they have a staff underneath them that takes care of the whole township. And I don't know if there's more than one township in, like Manheim Township even, that does that. That was my question, my questions and things, what's going on, just the whole. Like I said, I overthink things lots of times. I have a habit of doing that.
And I don't know, that this helps or not, but in a lot of ways, I think the skills we'll be looking to that person is, can they help us, number one, help the three entities work together? And number two, can they help them create a structure that complies with state regulations and qualifies for grants and everything like that, so that we're in compliance and well-positioned to get grants
It makes it easier to
and
get
other
grants,
things
yeah.
to help fund this.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I think their major role is, to kind of, to sort out things between, especially, with the school district already having a big burden of, of a lot of recreation facilities and, how can we, what's appropriate? And they probably don't want to take on more, but, so it's, it all remains to be seen. And I guess, so, yeah, but I think it's the board that they form that makes the decisions then after that. That's
Yeah,
the way
I may not have done a real good job at describing, but, in terms of control of what's going to happen, that's all locally decided. I mean,
Yeah.
control is still going to be
Yeah.
locally decided about what
Guidance.
the local community wants. And that's,
Because I didn't want to envision somebody coming in and sitting up there, okay, here, I'm here now, you do what I tell you to do and stuff, and we don't have to say, to try and get in there, to make sure that everything blends in with the community,
I'm
that's-
sure whoever's gonna do it will say, okay, this is what's already happening around you. This is what Elizabethtown does. This is what Effort is doing. This is what Hempfield does. This is what Manheim Township does, and how they work with their school district and how they work with their, if there's more than one, like with, I know with E-Town, they have more than one municipality.
Yeah.
Manheim Township is just Manheim Township. Hempfield also would have Mountville Borough, and, they have
Probably has a
multiple,
couple, yeah. Just
governmental,
Yeah.
agencies. So I'm sure that will be part of this is how it works around us, because people on the school board can talk to their school board members, and, our township people can talk to, Manheim Township people, or how they do things, and then we
I
can.
understand, so I just want to make sure that I wasn't clear on just how the procedure's going here. I know you're going to the meetings and you understand a little better because you're going to the meetings. I appreciate that. You know, I think that's great. You have the time to do that and you have the desire to do that. I'd like to do it too. I just, I don't have the time right now, but, you know, I thought about dropping off the board because of my son, you know, but other than that, I'm going to try and keep it going here.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, and then the last point that Diane had raised about the 3 to 5 year capital improvement plan.
And the reason I did that is just because I've been on this board now almost 20 years, so I see how slow the wheels turn of things. So I really just thought if there's a way that we could look at what is in the immediate, 3 to 5 years is kind of immediate in terms of how government operates, that we would have an idea of what potentially we could be looking at in terms of, cost or what priorities you think there are and how that may affect things longer term in terms of where this plan goes, too. And I know Troy had mentioned a while ago about the playground at Flory, I believe, being at the end of its life cycle, and that was coming up soon. I didn't know how urgent that was because that's a fairly big budget item. And if there was anything else big like that was on the horizon that we would need to know about, and how urgent, again, that is, or just kind of what
My recollection from, and honestly, I haven't cracked open the regional plan that we do have. I haven't done that recently, but there were some things in there that were recommended that are more specific to East Lampeter rather than the regional things. So you might want to look through there and pick out what you see as priorities from that list. The other thing that we've been working on, which I think from the Board of Supervisors perspective anyway is a high priority, is this Greater Lancaster Heritage Pathway. And so we've been devoting a lot of time and energy to that, and we're going to be looking for opportunities to get funding, both state grant funding as well as maybe corporate donations and other sources that we can gather. At this point in time, what High's doing with the Walnut Street extension, they're at the same time designing that segment of the pathway, and so we'll have a design, we'll have the permit to be on PennDOT's right of way. We'll have all the necessary agreements in place. The only thing that we won't have will be dollars to build the path. So at this point in time, the estimates are $1.2 million to build this section of path along with the trailhead that's planned behind the College of Health Sciences. So, we're looking for sources to fill that gap while the design's going on. But I think they're hoping that the design will be done later this year. And then they want to go to construction, of course, with the Walnut Street extension starting next year. So ideally, we'd build them at the same time. That's kind of what we're working towards.
Now, will that forever be known as the Heritage Pathway? Or is that who's the entity that is in charge of that? Is that the county or is that
the original planning for it was started by the Lancaster Intermunicipal Committee.
Right. Okay.
And the planning for it, the concept planning for it was done at the same time that the county did their active transportation plan. So it's not really well defined right now. Our board, the Board of Supervisors in East Lampeter has said, okay, we'll take responsibility for this segment as far as owning and maintaining it until a larger entity comes along, because the Greater Lancaster is supposed to go all the way from the health campus on the west side of town to Leola.
To Monterey, yeah.
So ideally, it would be some larger entity that would be responsible for all of it, rather than just the pieces
You would
within
think
the
the county
municipal.
would take that,
Yeah, that's unlikely, I think, but,
well, not with the crew that's in there now, you're right.
so, we're gonna try to get this segment built. You know, our board has said we'll take responsibility for it for now. And hope to work on the rest of it. I know Tara and I were in on a meeting that Mike Doman from the county planning department organized. And we heard about the efforts that are going on in East Hempfield and
Western
Manham Township and the
yeah.
city. And, you know, there are a lot of pieces of this that are being worked on throughout. So and that's how it's going to come together ultimately is, you know, different pieces will get dropped in and it'll hopefully all link up at some point.
How far are they thinking of taking it? Always the Willow Road, or is it going to stop short of Willow Road?
It'll stop just short of Willow Road.
Okay.
Yeah. The trailhead will be pretty much directly behind the College of Health Sciences.
Okay, so the exit to get off to the college, there won't be always up there, it won't be coming off on the Willow Road, it'll be coming out probably on the side there or into the health campus or something. Don't really know, I guess, at this point. Yeah.
Well, no, the design is, if you can picture the roadway that High recently built on the, what I would call the east side of Greenfield Road, it comes out to Greenfield.
Right.
Okay, the road will be, that'll be a four-way intersection.
Okay, about halfway up there.
That'll go
on
you know,
this, on the lower side, I guess, whatever, away from Willow Road, the side of the campus, the health.
Right.
Okay.
Right, that's where that road
Okay.
will come from
Okay.
Walnut Street to Greenfield
Okay.
Road.
There's possibly be a big area up there. It's empty pretty much for development too, as far as open space. And because there's a good bit of space behind there then.
So yeah, I just share that as, you know, that as far as recreation stuff, that's probably the biggest thing that we're working on right now.
That'd be one of the easier places. There's nothing there. You just fill in.
The other thing I was thinking about, and Diane, this is probably something that's closer, nearer and dear to your heart, and one of the things that I think we might want to address is to go back over the plan again and read, look at it in greater detail, and perhaps say, for instance, like, before we reconsider what kind of playground facilities we're going to do at, over there at Ford Park, would it be appropriate to say, well, gee, what's the demand? What do we think we need? Do we have enough playground facilities? I suspect we don't. Do we want to look to, expanding that? Do we want to look to doing something at another park? What do we want to do? And I guess what I'd like to do is think about, there's probably a couple things like that. Playground facilities, there's also active recreation, which you were talking about, more athletic fields. What are the things that we think, and those would seem to me, one of the things that I've thought of, Chris, and it addresses your question about, does this board continue to exist? One possible way to divide the responsibilities that I think, I don't know whether we actually talked about this or not, but the point is, what we're talking about is that this is a recreation program. The regional thing is a recreation program, but that the township still might be charged with obtaining and maintaining the facilities that we have. Like, for instance, they'll run programs, but will acquire and care for and maintain the parks. And I'm not saying that's necessarily a desirable way to do it, but it's one way to approach things. And so that one thing that we would be safe, I think, in doing is examining what the plan says about what kinds of facilities as opposed to programs are needed, what buildings, what pieces of property, what tracts of land do we need, where we low, where we high, identify those and then start to,
Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
because again, looking at 3 to 5 years or
Right.
5 to 7 years, one of the recommendations was potentially changing the softball field at community to a multi-purpose field. And
exactly.
again, where does that fit into budgets and how much would that,
Can
does that
can I
really
ch-
cost and that type of thing?
Can I chime in?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Troy and I have been working on this for the past few years, and it all comes down to funding and budgets, of course. And on my list, I had the Heritage Trail, like Hutch brought up. It's dependent on the CV Park plan. We also need to repave and restripe community parking lot. We were looking at the playground equipment at Flory Park, and also a pavilion / restroom for Lafayette Park because we have no facilities there. That's the kind of things we were looking at in East Lampeter Township parks. But then again, the CV comprehension plan is going to come into play also. But I just wanted to let you know what we've been throwing back and forth amongst staff.
Okay, I have a question on the paving.
Mhm.
The paving that was done at Flory over this past summer, to me, I think was totally unnecessary. In terms of other things I think that money could have been used more effectively in other places. How do you determine that the parking lot at community needs to be redone? Who determines that?
We take core samples and look at the base and what's underneath it and all the cracking that's happening in the parking lot. And if you don't catch it before, you lose the whole thing, and then you spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to repair it instead of spending $30,000.
Okay, as long as there's a scientific way to, I mean, because just as an example, I go to too many meetings, but
Yeah, we don't.
the school district wanted to redo all the carpeting in the district office building because it was like on the schedule. And there was nothing wrong with the carpet. I mean, it was perfectly fine. But because somebody had put it on a maintenance schedule or some type of a capital improvement plan, like, 10 years ago, they were going to rip up this carpet when it was perfectly serviceable. There was absolutely nothing wrong with it, and I made a stink about it, and they ended up taking it off the list. So it's, as long as there's a reason to do it, I have no problem with that. But just because it's on a plan to say, well, we do this every 10 years, or we do it every how many, to just.
No, that's not the way paving's handled. We did the driveway at Flory Park back towards the concession stand due to that base being down probably 5 to 6 years. And they tell you, when you let it go 5 to 7 years, you're going to be tearing it all out and redoing it. So you got to get top on top of it.
Okay.
The wearing course got to go. But if you go through Community Park, you'll see all the crack sealing that's been done over the years. And I don't think anything, I think it was resealed when I first started in 2004. So there's been no paving maintenance on that parking lot at all.
Okay. What about the actual pathway through community? I've noticed there are some spots there that have some cracks and some.
Again, it all comes down to budget. All depends what's in the park maintenance budget. If we can do spot repairs, I wouldn't even know where to put a cost or a price to redo that whole path.
Mhm.
There's just sections that we can do, but budgets are tight.
Yeah, I think definitely if the park board could develop a list of priorities, then when we are looking at the budget, we can figure out, what can we do, what can't we do, and what's the next thing on the list, so that we're doing the right things. We're not just randomly doing stuff without some logic to it.
Let's all go through and look through it again and see what.
Yep.
Doesn't hurt to read through it again, that's for sure.
It doesn't, no.
And I'd like to tie it to the plan. I mean, take advantage of that. Use the plan to say, what did people say they wanted? Was there anything that was identified that we are deficient in or that we need to address or anything like that. What are people asking for? And I'm thinking, I think that you're right, and Diane, I think that's a great suggestion to be able to say that that's probably something that we need to step up and be able to do, be able to address over this year. So, I don't know whether, what do you think? I mean, do we want to, is there some way to subdivide this task at all, or think about what we might want to do over the next couple of months to make sure that when budget time rolls around, we have substantial suggestions. And that would be, Charlie, to your point, you normally are asking us in June, July, and August, aren't you?
For budget items,
Yeah.
May.
Keeps getting earlier.
We do.
Well,
We
that's
do-
good. I mean, maybe
For 2023.
Got to remember, we've got to do all the legwork to get pricing and design and everything. That's worth the work.
Well, and then we've got basically
February, March, and
4
April.
months to put something together. So
Okay.
June at the
what's
latest.
the pleasure of the board? Would we like to tackle that?
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
I'm sorry, I said, I just asked the board, how would it like to tackle the process of, first looking at the plan and secondly, formulating a list of recommended projects.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
capital improvements.
June at the latest, I would say, for budget items.
If it's helpful, I can send the recommendations out of the plan to everybody as a starting point.
That would certainly
Yeah.
Okay.
kick us in gear. And what I'm thinking is what I would suggest is that for the next meeting, I'll even put an item on at the end of the agenda and say, consideration of the plan and formulation of recommendations for, that'd be the 2022 budget. Does that sound reasonable? We would start that and what I'm
Again,
thinking-
just what our priorities are. It doesn't necessarily have to be for next, just getting a list of priorities. And if these are the 5 most important things for us to do over the next 3 to 5 years, and, at least they know and can
Well, the one thing about that
factored
is,
into the game plan. But again, I think it's important that you do look at it with the lens of this plan
right,
being implemented at some point.
right. And, well, the one thing, I'm thinking that it's kind of like, while I said, well, we're calling it priorities, it may not in a sense be prioritized in the sense that it may be cherry picked, if you will, based on availability of funds and programs and things like that, and other initiatives that are taking place. So that if we had a list of, say, 5 items, and I'd use this as an example. You talked about the pathway at Community Park. I know it well because that's where I jog almost every day. But one of the things about that, I recognize that may be affected if we ever get the riparian buffer done in that area. That's some of the areas get close to the creek. How will that impact that? And maybe those parts of the path could be redone when that project, whatever it is, if that's a year from now, it's 5 years from now, we don't know. But that it's an opportunistic, if you will. In other words, you take advantage of opportunities that exist. So, okay. Anybody else have any other thoughts?
That makes sense.
Okay. Anything else? Any other new business?
I would just mention, sort of back to the Heritage Pathway, there is going to be a presentation at the supervisors meeting this coming Monday evening, which is the 1st of February. So you want to it was advertised in the newsletter, but I know what
I
happens
did see
in the
that.
newsletter sometimes. But if you want to zoom in and at least listen and watch, you might hear some more things about what's happening with that
Okay.
project.
And what time's that meeting? 7:30?
7:30 is when it starts. That'll be closer to the front, but not the first thing that happens.
Okay.
And then, of course, we have our forecast meeting on Saturday, the 6th. So
Oh, yeah.
hopefully you all have that on your calendar. Again, we're doing that remotely, so you're going to have to zoom in order to participate, and we hope you will. So we're not providing you breakfast. You have to cook your own breakfast.
I'll send links to that.
Well, we can,
Is there a
we
link?
can wear our
We can all
pajamas.
cheers with a cup of coffee, can't we?
Yeah, we can have our pajamas on, everything. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is a public meeting. So
But it's like from this.
You have to wear pants,
Yeah,
in case your camera falls.
yeah. Okay, anything else?
Good.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Thank you, folks. Have a good evening.